finance, and overcoming barriers to access to finance. This event aims to identify investment opportunities and actionable solutions, and to help direct finance flows to enhance mitigation in this critical decade. With this in mind, today's investment-focused event comprises of 3 sessions. The first session will set the scene for discussions on unlocking investment for mitigation actions in the West sector. And we will then have a pitch-up session where parties that have submitted projects will pitch them to a panel of investors, financial institutions, and other policymakers with a view to receiving expert advice and insights on investment project preparation. And the third session will be the case study exchange, and will present information on best practices and solutions to mobilize climate finance to the West sector, including through the circular economy approach. Without further ado, I now start the first session, and the sun-setting presentation will provide an institutional perspective within the investment ecosystem for mitigation actions in the West sector. I would like now to invite Mr. Low from the GCF for his presentation. Please, Dr. Low, you have the floor.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, and thank you very much, Dr. Gao, for the kind introduction. I will take a mic so that I can come and talk with you rather than stand here and lecture to you. Today, I'd like to use the next 15-20 minutes to discuss how the Green Climate Fund would like to see how we can try to help mobilise the circular economy. What I'd like to talk through is, first of all, very briefly, a quick introduction to the Green Climate Fund and how we are looking to catalyse change. I'll then talk briefly on the GCF products. And then what I want to really get into is, for this circular economy conversation, thank you, how can we start to work together to build a shared narrative on how we can work in making this space, which is an incredibly exciting space, work for us. Then looking at how we do the value proposition to attract the key financing that we require. So, very brief introduction to the Green Climate Fund. Our mandate is to support developing countries to transition to low-emission, climate-resilient societies. Our resources are spent 50% in mitigation, 50% in adaptation, and at least 50% of our resources are going into the adaptations, going to LDCs, SIDS, and African states. To date, we have committed around $18 billion of finance. That has leveraged another 4 times as much of co-financing into projects. 60% of that $18 billion of GCF resource has been contracted for African projects as grant and concessional finance. So really responding to the requests that we heard from the Excellencies this morning and through the last week. So Africa really is benefiting significantly from the GCF resource. However, we need to do more. There is so much urgency and need that we see day to day. And key in this is building out good stories to show climate financing is working, so that we can go back into the international community and secure more money to come through this channel to catalyse the transformations that really deliver sustainable climate action. We have 2 key areas of financing instrument. The first is the capacity building. Go back. Sorry. Is on the capacity building grants for helping countries to build climate action, to be ready through national action plans, net determined contributions on how they're going to drive regulatory institutional change. I do believe the slides will also be available afterwards, so you don't need to worry too much about photographs. I'm getting a nod, and I guess a recording or a readout afterwards too. Yes, a nod. So you can just sit back, relax, and think through rather than worry about taking notes. So these grants really trying to build the policies for resilient economies, the regulatory frameworks that we need, building out the business systems, the financial architecture that allows money to flow in for climate action. The second part is then providing concessional catalytic finance to de-risk transactions. So not providing the bulk of the finance, but being smart in how we provide that finance. And I really want to focus on that later on in the slides, because as we build out a narrative for circular economy and waste management, there is money available. It's just not seeing the business opportunity. So how do we change that? And the answer here is in storytelling. We need to work much harder on showing what the story, the value proposition is. We're about to go into the pitch hubs after this and be looking at what are the pitches of projects. And what I'm looking to see as GCF when we listen to these pitch hubs is how we are addressing all the stakeholders in the room. So I'm going to provide a framework to try and help this. The 5-case model was originally developed in the UK for developing very large, complex transport projects, but needed lots of different stakeholders to be involved in understanding why to put billions of dollars of money into the project. And the simple answer was because everybody was going to benefit. Win, win, win. We need to build that narrative here. The 5-case model has now been adopted by the G20. It's used very much as an anchor way of doing business in South Africa and many other countries. This is not something that is only for the developed country. This is applicable here. And it looks at building not a traditional MBA business case, which assumes that you're working in a business as usual space. We're trying to transform economies in building a new circular economy, a waste management economy. We need to start with a strategic case of why does change matter? Why is business as usual untenable? So that we can talk to the politicians and have them understand why this is important. But also so we can talk to the leaders of industry. But also so that there's a clear story for all the stakeholders involved in this space. Then we need a socioeconomic case that helps us talk to the bureaucrats and understand why this space matters. Then the commercial case for talking to industry. The financial case to talk then to the financial decision makers. And then the management case on how we're going to implement this. So let's now take this straight into waste management, which is a topic you're going to find I love. We have a linear business process just now where the local governments are tasked with collecting waste. And in their budget, this is the lowest rank of how they use their budget. So they do as little as they possibly can. And what they do, I've been around many countries, and you will recognize this story. They put a budget for waste collection. They don't have the vehicles for waste collection themselves. So by and large, the mayor or the governor subcontracts that waste collection, probably to his cousin or his nephew, if you know what I mean. The waste contractors take that waste. They normally have a truck that does maybe 2, maximum 3 collections a day, because it's not a waste-specific compactor truck, it's just an old truck. And it gets stuck in the congestion. It's got a big team working on it, collecting that waste, and the waste then gets taken to the landfill. Does it? Really? A lot of the waste, because the contractor's paid on a performance basis, they dump it at the nearest opportunity. That's why we have so much waste in our rivers and sea. The waste that does get to the landfill, well, there's a gate charge in many countries. sometimes it's zero, typically it's $20, $30 a ton. The landfills everywhere are full. It's an unsustainable linear model, which then has at least a $60 per ton real cost. $50, $60 real cost, plus a whole load of unquantified economic costs of health impacts and waste in the environment and lost resource. All of these commodities have been produced and manufactured. A significant portion of those quantities have been imported. Plastics, metal, paper, aluminium have been imported. That's a balance of trade issue. The landfill's full. The government is saying we need a different solution. Let's do waste to energy. It solves everything. The real cost of waste to energy is somewhere at least $70, $80 a ton, if not more. The government doesn't have a budget for it. They've got to use the money that would be used as the gate fee for the landfill. And then they're told, oh, you still need a landfill to deal with the residual ash. So we still need a landfill. Problems, problems, problems. That's the linear economy. There's also the informal part of this. In every developing country, roughly 2-3 people per 1,000 work as informal waste collectors, scavengers, waste pickers, call them as you will. Picking up waste, this morning as I'm looking out my window, I see somebody outside picking waste. Everywhere this is happening. I've been to landfills where there are 2,000 cattle on the landfill. Hundreds of hens, hundreds of goats. Do you want to eat meat that has been growing up on a landfill? Well, you probably are. Are you comfortable with that? Is that the kind of circular economy you want? No. But we need to also address what's happening with the local scavengers. They're earning around $10 per day. For collecting, sorting waste, we don't need the clever technologies that were presented yesterday by Norway. Fantastic stuff, but in the developing countries, these are actually very skilled people who can pick up waste, and they can tell you what each of these different materials, not what they are chemically, but they know which different type of plastic that is and what they can sell it for. And that's where it starts to get interesting, because they're selling that waste, making $10 a ton, to a local collector who's selling it on to another waste collector, and it's starting to aggregate value. This is a value creation journey. In collecting that waste and putting it into these collectors, by the time it's sold into the industry, plastic waste is worth around $150 per ton. Worth $150 per ton. The same stuff that we're putting into landfill and costing us the dollars per ton that I talked about earlier. What's the way you want to play this? Do you want to spend money on a linear economy that's just causing cost? Or do you want to try open up the opportunity that's at least, as a minimum, giving you $150 per ton income, revenue? Absolutely, this is where we want to play. The challenge then is there is a large amount of informal sector here. There are cartels operating that really push up the price of the collected wastes as it gets sold into industry. But we can bring that, we can address that issues as we go forward. So, coming back then, 5-case model. We need to go to politicians and say, we can bring a circular economy solution to this. That is going to really deal with the challenges we have with a linear economy and start to create revenue into this space that's going to help bring a formal economy for the hardest to reach waste pickers, where we can really start to bring new business opportunities that's going to help the balance of trade, in that we're going to have resources available domestically that otherwise we have to import, where we're going to bring new industry into our economies from that whole value chain as we take that from the waste, through the waste sorting, into the waste processing, into resources and commodities that then are feedstock to the growing industries that we have in all these countries that we're looking at. That becomes an interesting political proposition. It also is something that all the key stakeholders that we have listed there understand. Then as you look at it as a socio-economic case, and you're talking to the bureaucrats, then you have a whole different story for the bureaucrats. Are we going to have this challenge of how we're spending money and trying to build a new landfill that nobody wants versus putting in place a few material recycling facilities that are clean, sanitized logistics hubs fundamentally? This is an easy proposition for bureaucrats. The commercial case then, as we'll go on to, starts to build a whole lot of different revenue opportunities that starts to build that commercial case. But then when you go to the financiers, you show them the money, the income, but this is actually something that is bankable. And then the management case beyond that. So let's look then at how we try to build that narrative around the commercial case and the financial case. We start off by looking normally at, we need to make these interventions. These, the beneficial use of proceeds. How are we going to use that money? So microfinancing is a fantastic place to start in helping formalize and structure how the waste pickers are collecting, sorting waste, because that brings clean, quality waste into the space. Instantly, immediate revenue for a business model. But also we've got a public-private opportunity in how we build out material recycling facilities, simple waste sorting of dry mixed waste. Now the key to this is keep the food waste separate. That's the only thing you need to educate households. The only thing. Don't contaminate the rest of the waste with your food. The dry waste then, easy sorted in a material recycling facility, and you get the value. You keep the food waste separate, it then becomes much easier to compost. So many compost projects I've looked at, the compost is contaminated and unusable. Keep it separate, easy. Then you can start to look down the line at value-adding downstream processing as you process those commodities. That then creates a circular, climate-resilient, socio-economic value chain. That's giving a just and equitable transition for the hardest to reach. We talk a lot about a just and equitable transition. Here is how to really make it happen. That's the use of proceeds as how a bank would look at this, or an investor would look at this. You see then that we're creating value. We need to monitor, we need to report, we need to evaluate. And then you need to look at how you're going to capture value from that. You've got the sale of recyclates, at least $150, as I said, per ton, plus. You've got the fees that you can be charging for the waste producers. And we need to really look at extended producer responsibility regulations because they really make a difference. We need to look at the savings that are accruing, and we need to look at carbon revenues. But you capture up all of these different revenues, you then show to the financiers that there is an income that's going to repay their financing. We then look at what's the appropriate mix of a capital stack of financing, and then understand what are the issues, the risks that we need to address to de-risk bringing that financing into space. The climate funds like the GCF are really interested in how we de-risk that whole capital stack. So our role is at the bottom of the capital stack, not at the top, but taking that high-risk catalytic financing space so that we then get that circular economy rolling. And I'm running out of time. I'm coming to the key takeaways, so we're all good. So what I'm asking as key takeaways are, please actively engage with your nationally designated authorities. That's our go-betweens for the Green Climate Fund. We have $4 million per country on capacity building. A portion of that could be used in this space to help benchmark where these countries are currently at in their domestic, regional, institutional capacity challenges versus where we need to get to. Simple benchmarking exercise. Work on curating a deal story that's using these collaborations to build that systemic value chain that's giving us a win-win-win for all the stakeholders. And that's then a compelling proposition, both for the investors, but also for the young populations who really care about this space. And third, as you're looking at that business model, identify all the potential revenue streams, match them against the financing requirements so that you're getting the financiers comfortable, and look to GCF as how you then de-risk the last part. I'll leave it there. Thank you very much. Chairman, back to yourself.
Thank you very much for that very informative presentation. Noting the demand from parties, the last session and in conversations with parties, we'll now move into the Pitch Hub session. The Pitch Hub session will take place in 2 breakout rooms, MR1 and MR2. That's where we had our breakout groups yesterday. 3 projects will be featured in MR1. That will be projects from from the Dominican Republic, Armenia, and Brazil. And 3 projects in MR2. That will be Turkey, Russia, and Liberia. So please feel free to join the breakout room of your choice. The Pitch Hub's sole aim is to provide an opportunity for interested parties to share their project ideas and interact with investors, financial institutions, and other policymakers with a view to receiving expert advice and insights on investment project preparation. So the advice and/or insights shared by participating stakeholders are provided independently and on a voluntary basis, and are intended to inform and inspire further development of project proposals. While these exchanges are designed to be helpful, they do not imply endorsement, funding commitment, or a specific outcome related to the project presented by the Secretariat. So they do not imply an endorsement and a commitment or any specific outcome on the part of the Secretariat. With that, I'd like to request you to move to the breakout rooms, and we'll reconvene in plenary MR2 after the Pitch Hubs for the final session of the investment-focused event. How much time do we have? So we'll reconvene at 4:15 in MR2.
Colleagues, this room is MR1, the other room MR2, and just pick the projects of your choice, and then we reconvene afterwards here in this meeting room.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our pitch hub. We're going to hear three proposals and have some feedback on them. My name is Gareth Phillips. I'm the manager of climate and environmental finance at the African Development Bank. And we are joined by, I have to my far left, Mohammed Sultan from the Global Methane Hub. And we have two colleagues online. I'm not sure if we can see them online, but I think we have Rosa Stella Mbulu from the Mitigation Action Facility and Max Russer from the NDC Partnership, both participating virtually. And on my immediate left, I have representatives from the Dominican Republic who are going to be presenting one of the pitches, and then we will have two more pitches delivered virtually from participants. So we will hear from, hold on while I just, yes, Dominican Republic. We're going to hear about methane reduction in schools, an educational approach to climate change mitigation. Then we will have colleagues from Armenia presenting online Nature-Powered Armenia, circular climate solutions for emission reduction and rural resilience. And finally from Brazil, National Productive Forests Programme. So, colleagues, we're going to have a presentation, first of all, from Marcia and her colleague from Dominican Republic, and then I'll call upon our panel of experts to provide some feedback, and then we will move to the next from Armenia, follow that process, and same again for Brazil. And how long do we have? 20 minutes, including the pitch and feedback? Plus minus. Okay, so we have about 10 minutes for the pitch and then 10 minutes or so for feedback. Marcia, over to you.
Good afternoon. Okay, it's fine. Good afternoon, distinguished colleagues. Today we are in our national capacity and we are very happy to be here because we're going to present an initiative that is very valuable for us. Let me start with one fact. In the Dominican Republic, waste sector represents 20% of our emissions, and in the Dominican schools, more than 50% of this waste is organic. And most of it ends up in upper-end landfills. We have more than 350 open-air landfills where it decomposes and releases methane, a gas 80 times more harmful than CO2 in the short term. And thinking of that, thinking about these emissions, thinking about how can we turn this problem into a solution, we end up with a question. What if this waste, instead of fueling climate change, could be transformed into something valuable? So parting from that, we started doing kind of research, and 70% of the schools in the Dominican Republic, they receive lunch and some snacks during the day. And we calculated that per student, it's about 134 grams waste. And we find out there was a good potential to do school composting so we can do carbon capture that it represents 31%, and at the same time create some kind of circular economy. Based on that, we proposed an initiative pilot that is for 5 schools in vulnerable communities, and it will represent 3,500 people approximately. Also, we're going to be working with we actually work on the National Council of Climate Change, and we're going to be working also with the Ministry of Education and also with our National Statistics Institution, so we can actually kind of build an MRV system for this composting initiative. For us, having the opportunity to install the capacity as well through composting, it represents a good opportunity to create not only the circular economy, but also invest in the education aspect in terms of climate awareness. Now I'm going to leave with my colleague. She's going to continue talking about the climate impact.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon. First of all, we would also like to reiterate our thanks to the Secretariat and the partners who joined this space. For us, it's going to be very beneficial to receive direct feedback from the hands of the financing dragons, as you said. This project goes beyond only the methane reduction. This is a project that is included in the roadmap of our methane reduction, local methane reduction roadmap, but it also has synergies with other projects that we have previously worked on. So we have a solid baseline to propose this project. The focus of the project will not only reduce methane, but it will also enhance the empowerment in the rural communities where the project is going to be implemented. We have already worked successfully with the Ministry of Education in training teachers from the Climate for Action empowerment perspective to teach them how to create climate action plans for the classroom. One of these proposed activities is to teach students as well as teachers at a technical level so that they can train students, so that they can understand about compost, and so that they can also multiply that knowledge to their family members. We have identified that in these communities, some farmers really struggle to get good quality composting. And sometimes it is more expensive for them, so they have sometimes to change the crops that they are cultivating due to the lack of the financing so that they can have rich and valuable soil composting. So the idea behind this project is that we will teach the teachers on composting, and then the teachers can teach the students and involve the community so that the organic waste that is recovered from the schools can then be turned into nutrient-rich compost to guarantee that not only we will gonna have an organic compost, but also to guarantee the quality of the soil and the nutrient absorption of the crops that are going to be cultivated. I'm sorry, my throat is betraying me at this moment. And so what we are really ultimately looking at is to having a sustainable solution for school, because we will be also linking this project with schools that have a benefit of solar panels in their ceilings, which is done through a partnership on the Ministry of Education as well as the Ministry of Energy. So the idea is to have a holistic approach to have sustainable schools that will be able to provide a solution based on the circular economy of the selling the compost to the local farmers, and then these farmers could then potentially sell these crops to the companies that actually make the snacks and the food and the breakfast for the students. So it's something that's going to be leaving the school and then coming back again to the school. And it will benefit the family, the students, and also the teachers. The Dominican Republic has also worked previously on producing educational materials for students and for teachers that really elevate the importance of taking action into climate change. Everything that we have done so far and that was used for the study and the investigation that we used into designing the project is based on already actions that we have been taking. So that way we can make sure that the project is not only sustainable, but it is also scalable, because 5 schools would be the pilot schools. And then on that, we could probably potentially roll out a national program where we could have more schools depending on the municipality and, of course, the size area of the school. I think I will leave it there for now.
Yeah, in that sense, thank you, Maciel. In that sense, we have a potential of including or achieving 400,000 tons of CO2 equivalent if we incorporate more schools after the pilot is been already implemented. For the pilot, we are estimated around 313 tons CO2 equivalent after the end of the 5 years, and accordingly to what I said before of the consumption and the waste that is being generated in the moment. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much indeed for a very nice presentation and for the preparing the slide that I think gives some useful information. So I'm going to call upon our evaluators, our panelists. I think of them as dragons because we don't actually have any money to give out, but we're a little bit like dragons in the dragon's den. I want to, actually, Ewan's presentation previously was very interesting, that highlighted these 5 cases: strategic, socioeconomic, commercial, financial management. We might like to think about that as we look at what's been presented. Otherwise, I'm very interested to hear your views on input. So, Mohammed, since you're here in the room with us first, I'm going to call on you first. I have plenty of things to say, but I don't want to hog the floor. So let me hear from you, and then we'll go to our colleagues online, and then I'll add some further input. So over to you for some comments. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. Thank you, Gareth, and thank you. This was a really excellent presentation. Really appreciated the focus. And really the sophistication with which you're looking at both policy and then the education, Ministry of Education. Just a couple of questions maybe. I heard you say that there's the waste per student is 130 grams per pupil. So one of the obvious questions, I guess, for me would be, why not right size the meal size to avoid the waste in the first place? Is that something that you've considered as part of the approach? I have a few other questions, but I'll stop here.
Okay, thank you for your question. Yes, it's around 134 grams. Normally, it's been already. We have planned meals that are being already, let's say, set up accordingly to the nutritioners that have been talking to our Ministry of Education. So it's something that is already been set accordingly, specifically to the nutrients. But we have seen that when the students already eat their meal, they continuously have like an approximate amount of how much they are lefting out. So I cannot tell you right now how much is the gram of the total plate, but I can tell you that it's not something that it's been done like randomly. It's actually according to the nutrients of the students that you're going to be receiving. But even though there are a lot of ways that, for example, if they are eating, let's say, meat, they throw out the bones and these kind of things. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. All right, let's go to Rosa Stella online, please. Rosa, are you there?
Afternoon. Also from me, thank you so much. It's an honor to serve on this panel. Thank you so much for your very comprehensive and interesting presentation. I see that you are proposing a small-scale measure. It looks like it's a pilot. Could you perhaps just explain what is your plan in terms of scaling of this measure? And how would the infrastructure be financed? Are you looking at grant funding? And if so, are you in the long term, after testing the pilot, looking at also introducing some financial mechanisms that would ensure sustainable implementation of these measures?
Sorry.
Thank you very much. That is a very interesting question. Yes, this is exactly a pilot that we are proposing. We are looking at possibly receiving a grant to roll out this project. And based on the scalability of the project, we are already working on identifying the other potential municipalities that have schools that could, ¿cómo se dice? That could qualify for this, precisely because of what you mentioned on the infrastructure. Not all of the schools have the dedicated space where we could have the composting stations. So that's part of the scalability aspect, that once the pilot is successful and is sustained by itself, then we can use part of that funding to roll out the program to the other municipalities that qualify. And then in terms as looking in the long term, as I said, we are trying to make sure that because this is thought as a nutrient-rich compost that can go into the soil, that then that compost can be used to grow the crops that are used to prepare the meals that the students will consume.
Rosa, anything else you want to add?
Yes, my follow-up question would be, have you had discussions already with the providers of the foods and snacks to the schools? Would they be interested in participating in this initiative by procuring crops from the farmers to then flow into the feeding programs for the schools?
Thank you very much for your question. That is something that will be done through the Ministry of Education, because the Ministry of Education has the mandate to hire these providers. So that is something that we are going to do through the Ministry of Education.
Okay, thank you, Rosa. Anything else? Otherwise, we'll go next to Max.
That's it for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Max, over to you.
Sure, thanks so much. Am I coming through okay?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear. Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, great. And yeah, first of all, thank you so much to the team from the Dominican Republic. Really great to hear about this composting project. And I just had a few questions related to the current project stage. And I saw on the slide that you've indicated that the design of the project is complete. But just wanted to kind of understand what that means. Has there been a feasibility study or pre-feasibility study completed for the project? If so, did you have any assistance from a project preparation facility or another outside project support provider? And if not, if you're still kind of at that project development stage, if you are planning on reaching out to a third-party project support provider to help with some of that analysis. Over. Thanks so much.
Thank you for your question. Yes, as Maciel mentioned before, this initiative is under our Maiden roadmap. So it's part of different kind of initiatives. And as we're working with the Ministry of Education, we also have reached the CCAC for this initiative. And as well, we have requested support to the NDC partnership, which I believe it's online. I don't know. In that sense, we are hoping to receive some support in terms of the financial aspects. But locally, we have already done some studies. That's why we have some of the numbers that I just presented now. And as well, we have been reaching for the municipality, so we have already identified the schools that are going to be where the project is going to be implemented.
Any follow-up, Max?
No, just great to hear. As a representative of the NDC partnership, great to hear that you've submitted a request through our partnership. Thanks so much for the response.
Great. Okay, so you've all been very gentle, and we've had some good questions. I want to provide some critical input. Look, I think this is good because it's reaching out to children, education. We know that children go home and educate their parents, and it can help move things in that respect. I like the fact that you have a scale-up plan, which is good, but I think you're missing a number of opportunities. You have a revenue generation stream because you're generating compost, and we cannot continue providing grants endlessly. So I think you need to work harder to find a means of monetizing that compost such that you can then continue with the rollout to other schools or other premises, because after you've succeeded in mobilizing one grant, it's going to be very hard to go back and get another grant because there just isn't enough grant money to go around. And we heard also from Ewan's presentation previously that waste streams can provide you with good sources of revenue. I think that the amount that you're asking for, at least from my point of view, is too small. the the transaction costs of getting $62,000 is $100,000. Signing a grant agreement, the legal time, the monitoring, reporting, and so on. So I would scale that up, and therefore, you mentioned this holistic design of looking at renewable energy in the school. So why not scale it up and add other activities that give you schools that are now zero carbon? Or more sustainable, and make a more compelling package for a range of activities. This could also strengthen the revenue model or save costs that could enable you then to recycle or reimburse that grant through saved costs to move out to the next school. I mean, we had some questions around the right sizing of the meals and so on, and so on. We need to know that waste stream is going to be sustainable, but we don't want additional waste coming in just for the sake of running the treatment or the waste, the composting process. So, but anyway, it's good that you have a number on that. I wasn't quite sure what this 31% carbon retention is. I see the mitigation avoided, but I didn't know what the mitigation removal was. I think if you're going to be talking about sequestration, we would need to see quite a lot more information about that, because it's an interesting concept, but I don't know how it fits in to that process. Well, I think that's probably what let me stop there, so if you had any further comments that you wanted to come back on.
Yeah, thank you very much. This is very great feedback. This is why we're here for. But I would like to answer to the point on the monetizing the compost. And that's what I mentioned, that we want to roll out the pilot, and then with the money produced from that pilot is that we intend to then tackle the scalability. So already we are thinking on the fact that this project will produce revenue. So just to answer to that point. But the other points were very, very valuable for us.
Okay, so I understand that process. I think, as you apply for the funding, then you will need to make that revenue model very clear, because it would have a very significant bearing, I think, on your ability to raise that money if you can show that you have a cash flow coming in that you're going to monetize and use for the rollout. I appreciate you don't have maybe the time to present all of it in this short presentation today. How are we doing for time? I think we're probably close to 20 minutes. Yeah. Okay. Yes. So let me go back to my evaluators and ask them if they had any. Yes, Mohammed is there, and Rosa, Max, if you want to come in, one quick final comment. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. I'll try to be quick. Maybe it's two, and you don't need to fully answer now. But just to go back on your scale-up plan, you mentioned that you could get to 400,000 tons of CO2 equivalent. I think it'd be good to get somewhat of a slightly more detailed plan that also looks at the cost, the scale-up costs associated with this. I guess it's 62,000 for 5 schools, but we'd be keen to see if there's any savings associated with such a large scale-up, and how many schools that would cover. It would be good. Gareth, from the bank's perspective, I can see why transaction costs for 62,000 would be high. I think for some foundations, it is still a high transaction cost for a small target, but I think some foundations are keen to see some of these sort of ticket size for grants. One thing though, on the selection for the schools, and this is not an economic question, but you mentioned that you're looking at schools that already potentially may have solar energy. From a sort of equity perspective, right? These would typically be schools that are potentially more already well endowed with respect to other schools that may not be as well endowed. And so I would just want to look at the opportunity to make sure that this doesn't all go to schools that already have financial resources to do things and leave behind some of the schools that may not have. Just a note of caution. Thanks.
Sorry.
Please keep your response short.
Yeah, no, just quick answer on that last point. This is all for public schools. So none of them are well endowed. And the fact that we wanted to link it to the solar project component is precisely because those schools are the ones that are in the most rural areas. So they already struggle with electricity. So this would be also to provide them with something more of an incentive. So just for that quick point.
Okay, thank you. Rosa, and then Max, do you have any final comments or questions?
No, I do not have any further questions or comments. I just wanted to mention that in terms of the mitigation action facility, just to give you a picture of the funding volumes that we provide, we typically provide 5 to 25 million euros per project, and the volume is determined by the applicant, the project applicant themselves, and the and the main objective is actually for the applicant to use the funding that is provided from us in the form of grants to leverage additional funding from the private or public sector. So in this case now where you are, if you were to look at scaling up, involving more schools, then this is something that you could develop in advance to the mitigation action facility once you have collected enough experience and data. And what is important to consider there is that the funding that we provide would cater for technical assistance as well as a financial mechanism that is based on a specific business model that you would hopefully be able to develop as you go through with your pilot. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Rosa. And Max, anything from you?
Sure, yeah, nothing too much to add, just seconding the thought on the size of the funds being requested, likely being in the smaller range, and that, you know, I think it could still be technically a pilot project, but scaled up to such that the funds being requested would validate the amount of transaction costs that would come with, you know, all the legal and all the stuff that happens in the background. So just seconding that. Thanks so much.
Very good, thank you. Okay, well, I think we will conclude our evaluation of this project and thank our colleagues from the Dominican Republic very much for coming and submitting their project and making the presentation. And I hope you find our feedback useful, and we look forward to following up with you in due course.
Thank you very much for providing the opportunity, and thank you for the colleagues for not leaving the room. I believe that they were not bored, so thank you for staying.
Very good. So we're going to move to our second project, which is from Armenia. And Rosa, I will call on you to comment first. So please stand by to take the floor after we hear the presentation from our colleagues from Armenia. Just wait for the slides to change. And excuse me, I'm taking my jacket off because I've got a big heater behind me here making me very hot. So apologies for the informality. So do we have our colleagues from Armenia online?
Hello, everyone.
Hello, yes, we can hear you. Oh, yes, we can see you. Yes, hello.
Hello, my name is Margarita Gasparian. I am representing the Project Implementation Unit under the Ministry of Environment. It is my sincere honor to extend our gratitude for the opportunity to present our initiative today. We deeply appreciate your presence and commitment to advancing joint climate action. It is with a sense of responsibility and determination that I speak on behalf of EPIU as we collectively work with our partners to design and implement transformative solutions for Armenia's sustainable future. In the spirit of shared responsibility, it is my privilege to present Nature-Powered Armenia Circular Climate Solutions for Emission Reduction and Rural Resilience project idea. This initiative seeks to advance Armenia's rural climate resilience with simultaneously addressing energy poverty and greenhouse gas emissions, offering a comprehensive and integrated approach to transforming the country's rural energy and agricultural waste into management systems. For us, this pitch hub is not only about presenting a project. We see it as a chance to engage financial resources from diverse sources, complementing the wide range of donors and environmental funds we already work with. By consolidating global efforts, we aim to reduce the adverse impacts of climate change on Armenia, especially in our most vulnerable rural regions. I'm not sure whether my presentation already, you see my presentation or not.
We're not seeing your slides yet. I understand the technical team are working on it. I did view them as they were circulated previously, but we may need to just pause for a moment while the technical team get the slides on. Please,
okay, thank you.
Please stand by. Okay, we're seeing it on the main screen, so please proceed.
Okay, thank you. Now I would like to present the project overview. Our project objective is to transform agricultural waste into clean energy and compost through circular economy solutions, reducing greenhouse gas emissions while improving energy access and resilience in Armenia's rural communities. The project duration is 4 years with a 20 years lifespan impact. The project total cost is $5.8 million US, from which $5 million is requested as a grant amount with an in-kind contribution of $800,000. The expected impact from the project will be 210,000 tons of CO2 equivalent reductions over the lifespan. Next slide, please. Now I would like to present the reality on the ground. Armenia's rural communities face harsh winters and growing energy insecurity. In these mountainous and semi-arid areas, families often rely on coal, imported fossil fuels, or unsustainably harvested firewood. The results are devastating. Forests are cut down, soils degrade, and biodiversity is lost. Greenhouse gas emissions rise, driving climate change further, and households, especially women and children, suffer from severe indoor air pollution, leading to serious health issues. Next slide. At the same time, our country generates huge amounts of agricultural residues, for example, wheat straw, orchard prunings, vineyard clippings, livestock manure. But instead of being used, these resources are often burned in fields or left to rot, releasing methane, a greenhouse gas more powerful than CO2. So here is the paradox. Our rural communities are energy poor, while energy resources are literally wasted in the field. So here we see the opportunity, and this is where our project comes in. We believe that agricultural waste is not a burden, it is a resource, and by applying circular economy principles, we will turn this waste into bioenergy and compost, and we will have the positive results, impact also. We will have the cleaner energy for rural families, stronger resilience for communities, and over the project lifetime, a reduction of 210,000 tons of CO2 equivalent, as I have mentioned before. But also we have some barriers in the framework of the implementation. Despite the clear potential of circular economy solutions, Armenia's rural communities face several critical barriers. Please, next slide. Here I would like to present the main barriers that we have identified during the project development process. The first one is limited access to technologies. Households' lack of affordable bioenergy technologies such as briquetting units, anaerobic digesters. Also, rural households rely on outdated, insufficient combustion methods. The second barrier is the financial constraints, high upfront costs for clean air and energy infrastructure. In addition, rural communities have limited capital, financial literacy, and access to loans. Also, long payback periods deter private sector investments. The third barrier is the technical knowledge gaps. Insufficient skills for system installation, operation, and maintenance, and also the limited institutional support for community-based energy solutions. And the fourth barrier is the policy and market environment. Agro-waste valorization not fully recognized or incentivized in Armenia's regulatory frameworks, and also we have weak enabling environment for community energy cooperatives and circular economy models. So we have developed our project components to address those gaps, barriers, and within the next slide, I would like to present the three components of our project. The first one is decentralized bioenergy systems. Within this component, we will install about 10 biomass briquetting units and biogas digester managed by community energy cooperatives. Local people will be trained to operate them and develop sustainable business models. Within the second component, which is related to energy efficiency improvements, we will Within 20 public buildings, like schools, health centers, local offices, will be retrofitted with modern heating systems, and 1,500 vulnerable households will receive efficient cookstoves with focus on woman-headed families and remote villages. In the framework of the third component, which is capacity building and policy engagement, we will train technicians, staff, and farmers, develop value chains for BOG briquettes and compost, and work with national and municipal authorities to build the right policy frameworks. In the framework of the next slide, I would like to present the implementation structure. The PIU, the state agency under the Ministry of Environment, will lead the implementation. As a direct access entity by both to Green Climate Fund and Adaptation Fund, EPIU brings extensive experience in managing climate finance and ensuring strong fiduciary, environmental and social safeguards. Over the past decade, EPIU has delivered around 50 projects with nearly 20 international partners. Its portfolio spans climate adaptation, energy efficiency, forestry, biodiversity, sustainable agriculture, etc., with more than 50,000 people across Armenia as beneficiaries. This proven institutional capacity ensured that the project would not only be implemented effectively, but also embedded into Armenia's broader climate and rural development strategies, making outcomes sustainable, scalable, and replicable in the long term. In the meantime, during the project implementation, collaboration with local governments, communities will be actively maintained, and steering committee comprising representatives from ministries, municipalities, and other relevant partners will be established. In the next slide, I would like to speak about why grant financing is matters, because you may ask, why do we need grant financing for this idea? The truth is, without grants, rural communities cannot break out of the cycle of energy poverty because they lack upfront capital and access to loans. Private investors are discouraged by long paybacks period and market risks, and the government faces competing priorities with limited fiscal space. So grant financing will allow us to cover upfront costs, build capacity, and risk investments, making sure clean energy reaches those who need it most. Also, we would like to present why we see this project will be sustainable, because we embedded it in our design. Next slide, please. So communities will own and operate the systems. The exit strategy involves full transfer of responsibilities to community-level actors and national institutions, with EPIU continuing oversight through regular programming. Business models will generate revenue from bioenergy. Local technicians will be trained for maintenance. And here I would like to also mention that project is fully aligned with Armenia's regulatory and legal frameworks, including the National Determined Contributions, the Energy Efficiency Action Plan, the National Adaptation Plan, and other strategies. By embedding our circular bioenergy solutions within these existing strategies, the project reinforces national priorities in emission reduction, energy efficiency, and climate resilience. So this is not just a 4-year project, it is a long-term scalable model for rural resilience and climate mitigation. And with the next slide, I would like to present the expected results from the project. By the end of the project, we will have reduced 210,000 tons of CO2 equivalent emissions, provided clean energy access to more than 1,500 households, retrofitted over 20 public institutions with clean bioenergy, created green jobs and new value chains in rural communities. So for us, this is not about the technology or emissions. It is about people, families who deserve warm houses without sacrificing their health or their forest. It is about turning waste into wealth and ensuring that Armenia's rural communities can thrive in a low-carbon future by converting waste into clean energy, empowering communities, and strengthening institutional and policy frameworks. The project advances Armenia's ambitious climate target while fostering sustainable rural development. And let me add that Armenia will proudly host the next conference of parties to the Convention on Biological Diversity. And this makes international diverse financing not just an investment in one project, but a contribution to a global stage where Armenia will showcase its solutions, its resilience, and its commitment to climate and biodiversity actions. Your support here will echo far beyond this initiative. It will strengthen Armenia's role as a regional and global model. That's all about my presentation. Thank you very much to having me. And if there will be any questions, I will be glad to answer them.
Okay, thank you very much indeed for that comprehensive presentation, and thank you for taking the time to prepare the slides, which I think give us a good overview. So I'm going to turn to my panel of experts. Experts, I want more critique from you and less questions, because we have 10 minutes before we move to the next one. So if possible, let's hear your thoughts on the project. Thank you. Over to you, first of all, Rosa, and then we'll come to Max, and then Mohammed, and I'll finish up.
Great. Yes, thank you so much, Armenia, for a very comprehensive and detailed presentation. I specifically appreciate the fact that you have presented a barrier analysis so that we can understand the context-specific factors. Now, for me, you mentioned that you are going to be developing a business model for this project. This means that you do not have a business model currently. And with that, I would be interested to know, when talking about scaling and replication, are you looking now at more grant funding? Because scaling and replication would best work if you could show, based on your business model, that with the grant funding, the seed grant funding that you're starting, you can at least start addressing some of the barriers so that more funding can be made available. Also grant funding, for example, from the Mitigation Action Facility, that could then be used to leverage additional funding. But the way you have presented the project at the moment, it is not very clear whether the grant funding will be used to leverage additional funding, especially because I am not very clear in terms of the formation of these energy cooperatives, whether there's a business case really behind it. Is there revenue generation? Are you going to put in measures that allow for the sale of the energy? Are these areas that you are targeting grid connected, or are they not grid connected? And would the community members be prepared to pay for the energy that is going to be produced?
Thank you very much, Rosa. Let's go to Max for your comments, please.
Sure. Thanks so much, and I'll try to keep them short. But yeah, thank you first of all for the very detailed presentation. I guess my comment would be on just the grant financing overall, and I appreciate the slide on explaining the need for grant financing. But it seems that blended financing could potentially play a role, especially because I think you're asking for 5 million in grant financing, and then I think it was 800,000 or so in in-kind contributions. And it seems like because of the type of project that this is, and as you say, that there's a large opportunity for revenue generation, it seems like it would be a good candidate at least to have a portion of that 5 million be coming from blended finance, such as concessional loans. I also had a question as to the cost for maintenance of these units, but we may not have time for that. So yeah, back over to you. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much, Max. We'll go to Mohammed.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for the presentation. A similar question around the sustainability and the business model. I think clarifying, first of all, it's a really good initiative, but clarifying what the revenue streams are, what potential scale of revenue streams are possible from this project, and whether or not you see a continuation for the need of grant resources beyond the first 4 years, if at all.
Okay, thanks. Amelia, I also have some comments which I'll give you, and then you'll have a chance to come back. First of all, I've been on the wrong end of some biomass development projects in the past, particularly in the days of the Clean Development Mechanism, where there was a lot of expertise and projects developed in that area. The challenge with biomass, as you may know, is it's high volume, low value. So the location of it has to be close to where you're going to use it, otherwise transporting it becomes a major problem. Also, the moisture content is a real issue. I guess you have quite a dry climate, but you have to keep it dry throughout the year if you're going to use it. I'm concerned the public buildings that want to use it aren't necessarily close to where the biomass may exist. I'd like to definitely know that the biomass that you're going to use is not in the end being used for other purposes. Quite often you do find that there are quite a lot of other uses. And if it's being left to decompose out in the fields, it's not necessarily going to be anaerobic. So the methane emissions and consequently the carbon benefits may be somewhat overestimated. Open burning is a real challenge, but there is an opportunity to address that through regulation. And I think that I would certainly want to see an enabling environment being put in place by the Ministry of Environment or Agriculture that's working against open burning. Security of supply is always a real problem. You invest in building your biomass facility, and then somebody else in the private sector sees the value and comes along and builds another facility and offers a better price, and you've lost your supply. So that can be a concern, and getting buildings to transition from one, albeit not a clean source of energy for heating, but from one that they know works, to move to something that is new, actually can present a very big risk. And my final comment is I'm not sure about distributing the 1,500 stoves to vulnerable households. Transitioning from existing technology to a clean stove is a major step forward. How are they getting the fuel? Where is it going to come to them? How can they afford to buy it? And so on. So I'd like to see a lot more detail around that. Plus you mentioned composting, but there was no detail. Finally, this potentially could be a carbon project with mitigation outcomes or ITMOs, because you are generating quite a lot of emission reductions, and I would like to know whether you've looked for some local developers who might be willing to take this on and you facilitate it through Article 6.2 or 6.4, because that could be another way of financing that through private sector activities. So that's some feedback. I'm going to give the floor back to you for a couple of minutes to see if you wanted to respond to any of those points. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, colleagues, for your comments, remarks. Those are very much appreciated. Foremost, I would like to mention that we are looking for, right now, we are looking for grant financing with the in-kind contribution from the country. And regarding the business models, we aim to develop the business models for the community cooperatives in terms of which they can proceed with the project implementation after the end of the project, and this will ensure that the value chains will be sustainable and they will work after the project implementation as well. Regarding the So regarding where the briquetting centers will be established, I would like to mention that we have several discussions with the communities, with the regions of Armenia that are most vulnerable to the climate change, and also they have their main activities are the agriculture activities, and we see that we can move forward with them, and we see their intention to work with us in terms of this project, and they can, in collaboration with us, select the places where we can install those briquetting centers. And about the renovation of the buildings, we are looking for the schools, health centers, local offices, because in the vulnerable regions, in the remote villages, because we see that there have issues, there have problems with the heating. So maybe I haven't answered to all of your questions, but we are now in the stage of making more deep evaluations and looking for communities and regions who are ready and who can ensure that the project will be implemented in an efficient manner.
Thank you very much. I had one other comment I just didn't make, and it was just to highlight, you mentioned it briefly, the black carbon coming from the burning. I think that's also a very interesting area. As you know, it's a short-lived climate pollutant. It has a big impact in areas where there is snow, because the black carbon obviously falls on the snow and increases the melting rate. That could also be an interesting route to explore. There is an initiative for countries to join a black carbon minilateral program, I think, that will be progressed at COP30. And you might also be interested in exploring that as a source of funding. Thank you very much, Amelia, for your joining us today and for your presentation and for answering our questions. We're going to move now to our final presenters, which are coming from Brazil. Sorry, I don't have the title of the project in front of me, but you can announce it as you go. Are our colleagues from Brazil online? And Max, if you're ready, I'll call on you first to make comments, just to be fair. Okay, we can see the slide.
Can you hear
Yes,
me?
and we can hear you. Yes, thank you. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much. I'm Tomás Patriota, Head of International Affairs of Brazil's Ministry of Agrarian Development and Family Farming. We work with small and medium-scale agriculture, which is defined by law as family farming. That is farming that is predominantly reliant on family labor and managed by the family. There are other criteria, including variable land size units that define what family farming is across the country, and it depends on climate and soil, and as well as economic viability. It can go up to 400 hectares in some cases, and sometimes less than 1 hectare. So it's a very diverse sector. It includes indigenous peoples, includes traditional communities, including Afro-descendant rural communities and others. And what I'd like to present now is our National Productive Forests Program. When we talk about productive forests, it's basically the agroforestry systems that we are supporting in primarily the Amazon rainforest region. But before going into that detail, I'd just like to remind everyone that family farmers, small and medium scale farmers worldwide receive less than 1% of climate finance, despite constituting close to 40% of the world's population and being responsible for about 80% of the food that is produced worldwide in value terms, according to FAO data. Therefore, there's a huge potential in supporting that sector, given that they are a crucial part of the solution to poverty eradication and also hunger eradication, besides all of the environmental services that are provided by these rural women and men that are not remunerated in most cases. When we talk about productive forests, really, it's we see that there's a huge potential, given that we have, as you all know, a huge deforestation problem in Brazil. Close to 20%, sorry, of the Brazilian Amazon has been deforested. We have what is called the arc of deforestation, which we want to transform into the arc of restoration. A lot of progress has been made in recent years in the reduction of the deforestation rate, particularly with command and control interventions, but this is not enough. And the premise really of the Productive Forests Program is that we need the right economic incentives to counter the pressure from particularly speculation on land, given the future value of extensive livestock or monoculture that has been expanding in the agricultural frontier. And here, the idea is to harness the value, the potential much higher value of the production of what we call socio-biodiversity products, such as the fruits and nuts that are provided by standing trees from native species of the Amazon region, such as acai, cacao, rubber, Brazil nuts, and maybe some lesser known ones internationally, such as anjiroba, which has many medicinal properties, or the fruit cupuaçu, and many others. Of course, by multi-cropping these with different other crops that can provide income, particularly in the short term, as well as food security, be that, for example, such as fruit crops, which could be banana, passion fruit, and others, which can be connected to public purchase programs that our ministry rolls out, such as the National School Feeding Program or the Food Acquisition Program, thus providing income and food security in the short and medium term. The National Productive Forests Program is articulated by combining access to technical assistance in rural extension, as well as our national credit program, PRONAFI, which provides very low interest rates, which are partly subsidized by the Brazilian Treasury, which pays basically the difference between market interest rates and these subsidized interest rates, which can be as low as 0.5%, 1%. This is combined with the rolling out of what we call forest schools, which are linked to train local agents and articulating different projects, as well as seed houses and nurseries for different types of varieties of the different tree species and crops, as well as popular units for technological reference units. So these are all combined in order to potentiate these agroforestry systems and allow their economic viability. This is also rolled out through a series of grants that have been secured. One of them is been secured by the BNDES, which is Brazil's main national development bank, and which manages the Amazon Fund, which includes international funding from governments such as Norway and Germany, main funders, and other countries. And we are, of course, open to additional funding through that route. 150 million KIs have been secured to convert in US dollars, basically divided by 5, more or less. And these are to be rolled out in calls for bids of 5 million reais each, so projects, local projects that can be rolled out in the different land reform settlements, which are the geographical focus, the territorial focus of the Productive Forest Program. These represent the land reform settlements represent about 8% of the whole Brazilian Amazon region, and about 75% of land reform settlements are located in the Amazon region. So this is quite significant. The other grants have been secured as well from another Brazilian public bank, Caixa Econômica Federal, 50 million reais, which are to be rolled out in projects of 2.5 million reais each. A call for bids has also been issued, and an additional 50 million reais from our ministry's own budget, MDA's own budget. The rolling out of this is done in collaboration with different partners, such as Brazil's National Enterprise for Agricultural Research, IMBRAPA, our National Technical Assistance and Rural Extension Agency, among other partners. The goal is to reach 19,000 families, productively restoring an area of approximately 12,000 hectares in total. So by developing this sociobiodiversity value chains, we also this will also happen in coordination with other possible market mechanisms besides the public purchase mechanisms that I mentioned. So this may include offtake agreements with companies that are willing to purchase these socio-biodiversity products, and we have been discussing these as well as possible complementary sources of market access for these communities in coordination with the other mechanisms that I have mentioned. So really, the Productive Force Program has the potential to combine many benefits at once. That is providing sustainable sources of income, food and nutrition security, but also adaptation and mitigation to climate change. We know that the Amazon region has been suffering from droughts in recent years, and of course, restoring the forest with a combination of different native species, intercropped with different food crops, also potentially with integration with livestock raising in these agroforestry systems. It's also a powerful way of restoring biodiversity, soil, and the sustainable management of water resources. So really, there's a big potential here that has been unexplored as of yet in agroforestry systems. There's strong evidence that agroforestry systems are a key component of the solution towards really reaching Brazil's goal that was stated in its NDC in COP29 of zero deforestation by 2030. It is not enough to have command and control in an area that is roughly the size of 2/3 of the territory of the United States, the contiguous landmass. And indeed, we need economic incentives for that to happen. This is a very powerful way of substituting the economic drivers of deforestation with other economic drivers of reforestation and biodiversity conservation, soil and water conservation as well, providing sustainable economic livelihoods for the communities that inhabit a significant part of the Amazon region. We have about 30 million women and men who live in the Brazilian Amazon rainforest, and therefore we need to work with these communities as opposed to simply having a conservationist outlook that would not take these communities into account. So we very much look forward to receiving the inputs of all the stakeholders that are present here. We really are very thankful for the opportunity to present this program. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Before I hand over the floor to Max, can I just clarify on the financing box we see on the slide? You're 185 million and 46 million. Is this, are you looking for grants or concessional loans? And is that USD or Brazilian real?
I'm sorry. Just give me a second, please.
Yes, so the funds required, is that grant or loan? And is that dollars or real?
So we have the grants that we have received as of yet are equivalent to reais, 250 million reais. And
so that's $50 million that you've received, and you're looking for another you're looking for another 140 million of grant or loan dollars.
Combinations of grants and loans.
Grants and loans, and it's in dollars, yes? That's shown on the slide.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. Let's go now to Max, please, for your feedback.
Sure. Thanks so much, and thanks so much to the colleague from Brazil on this super interesting program. Really appreciate the background and the context. I guess my main kind of constructive comment is kind of what you were touching on in terms of there's a lot to this program, and I know you were going over some of the more specifics of the grant financing that you've received and what you're looking for. But I think it's a little bit hard maybe to cover just on one slide. So if there could be maybe a few additional slides with a little bit more information so that you can follow along as to what different aspects of the program are doing and where the funding is going. I think that would be really helpful. And then in terms of a question, if there's time for it, would just be interested to hear about the implementation so far. I see that in the project timeline that you have fundraising and first implementation slated for last year in 2024. So would be interested to hear how that's gone and any kind of lessons learned for moving forward with the next tranche of funding. Over. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Max. Let's go to Mohammed and then Rosa, and then I'll finish up.
Back in the substance, but maybe part of the grants that you've received were from, I guess, BNDES and some of the national development banks. Why don't they come up with more resources as loans? Is there an opportunity there to source more loans for part of the work with these national development banks as a starting point? And the second is there sort of a carbon credit potential also to this project that you've explored? There's a lot, of course, there that could qualify, but is that something that you should maybe think about looking at for some parts of the initiative? Thanks.
Thank you very much. And Rosa, over to you.
Thank you very much. Also, from my side, for a very comprehensive presentation. My fear at the moment, I'm not a specialist in forestry and agroforestry, but I had a feeling that the scope was very broad. So it would be very useful for you to maybe concretize and maybe also narrow down the scope a little bit. And from my perspective, I was also wondering what is actually the logic behind the financing requirement for the project. You have 46 million already secured, assuming it's grant funding. Why do you need more? What have you done so far? Was it possible for you to actually leverage additional funding from financing providers? I also would like to understand, is there a specific business model behind this? Because you spoke about so many different crops, plants that could be planted that also seem to have an economic value. And from that perspective, I would like to understand how does that fit into your financing requirements, and what is the private sector involvement in there, and are they also bringing along funding, or are you just looking at providing grant funding? Is it now for the procurement of seedlings, or is it for the procurement of land? What do you need the funding exactly for? And how sustainable is this measure going to be? Can it carry itself after a specific time? And I also had the same question as Max in terms of what has been done so far on the ground, what has been the progress, and what lessons have you learned?
Thank you very much, Rosa. And let me just add a couple of further comments. I agree, it'd be nice to see an estimate of the carbon benefits. We've got beneficiaries in terms of families and hectares, but some carbon would be nice. I'd like to see more breakdown on the finance. Of course, you know, that's an important thing. We'd need to know what's grant, what's loan, and so on. I think my overriding comment is that it seems quite expensive. If I divide the total of 185 million by 76,000 families, that's $2,500 per family, or $4,000 per hectare. That seems to me quite a lot of money for an investment. I'm assuming they already have some assets on the ground, that, you know, they have some materials there. It's not that as if we're starting with bare land. So it seems to me quite expensive. But maybe it's not a fair assumption to divide one by the other. Let me hand back to you. I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name at the start of the presentation, so I'm not able to address you correctly. But colleague, let me hand back to you.
Thank you so much, Thomas Patriota here. No, thank you all for the very useful comments. I'll try to address them as comprehensively as possible in the time that we have left. Perhaps to try to make this more clear, we have indeed these grants that are already available, and they are combined with loans that are rolled out by different Brazilian public and private banks. through the PRONAF program, which is a national program for the strengthening of family farming. These are divided in different projects to try to answer one of the questions on what has been rolled out on the ground. This is a new program. We've started the inaugural project in the state of Pará, which aims to serve 1,680 families, supporting the recovery of at least 1,000 hectares of land, increasing food production, increasing farmers' income, and those land reform settlements in that area, with an initial 15 million reais from our ministry and Ministry of Environment for 2 years. And of course, this will be complemented by the BNDES funding, the 150 million funding, which has a 4-year time frame, which aims to restore 4,600 hectares, serving up to 6,000 families of smallholder farmers and traditional peoples and communities. And then there is the Caixa Econômica Federal program, which is a 3-year timeline with 50 million reais resources for agroforestry systems of 0.5 to 1.5 hectares, and supporting 6,250 family farmers. These are sort of different sub-projects within the productive forests broader program. I think to try to also answer one of the questions on the fact that this seems like an expensive investment per hectare, I think one of the key bottlenecks that we're trying to address that is indeed expensive relates to technical assistance and rural extension. Our ministry is only able to cover about 18% of our public, of about 4 million families in the country, through rural extension services. And of course, rural extension, when we're working with agroforestry systems, is more expensive because it is more complex. But it also provides much more carbon sequestration than conventional agriculture. So the results are also proportionally much higher. And we would need to be able to give a better, to have carbon estimates, and that we would very much welcome partnerships with different stakeholders to allow us, to enable us to measure this, because this is one of our bottlenecks as well. How sustainable is it in the long term? Well, this is really part of, I think that it's up to us, I think all the stakeholders to answer that question positively. Because there is indeed this initial push with grant finance, but the idea is to have this become sustainable with loans in the medium to long term. But there are indications that agroforestry systems are very resilient to economic shocks, precisely because of the multi-cropping dimension, and therefore not having to rely on a single commodity. The fact that products such as acai and cacao have been increasing significantly in value, but the fact that, for example, the expansion of acai monocropping is seen as less productive than acai multi-cropped with other crops, for example, given the benefits of cross-pollination, and indeed the yields are higher when there is multi-cropping. So there's a need to sort of shift the mindset of agricultural financing, which is still very much focused on monocropping and on a very small number of different crops. And therefore, that's part of the challenge that we want to address by blending different sources of finance, grants and loans. And indeed, Brazil has many sources of grants and loans that I've described here, but we would very much like to be able to partner with international stakeholders in order to increase what is still what can be considered, a pilot in terms of the scale. We're looking at 19,000 families and 12,000 hectares in recovery, and given what is needed, really what we want to demonstrate is that this is economically viable so that it can be scaled further. In terms of private sector involvement,
Thomas, can you conclude, please?
Okay, just one last point, I guess, on private sector involvement relating to the largest cosmetics company in Latin America, Natura, which is very much interested in purchasing agroforestry palm, multi-cropped palm oil, which of course we know that in many parts of the world is farmed in not sustainable ways. And this would, with offtake agreements, this would, of course, facilitate access to loans for farmers if they have the guarantee of purchase. So this is the kind of agreement that can be really win-win with all the stakeholders involved, particularly if there is on-farm processing, as is in this case, which would be beneficial for the company that is purchasing in terms of logistics, and of course adds value and income for the family farms themselves. I'll stop here. Thanks.
Thank you very much indeed for your answers, and indeed congratulations on a very interesting project, and I can see many beneficial outcomes coming from that. So, colleagues, we're coming to the end of our session. We've had 3 presentations: Dominican Republic on methane reduction in school. We had Armenia talking about nature-powered Armenia, and finally we heard from Brazil on National Productive Forests Programme. I hope that we've, from our panel, we've been able to provide some useful feedback. I think in summary, we like to see numbers. We want to know about mitigation, potential sequestration. We want to see costs, grants and loans. Breakdown is important. I think it's really important to be very careful about asking for grant. Grant money is very scarce. And we need to use it very carefully. So it puts a high premium on identifying cash flows and where you can make money from other activities within the project that can take pressure off the need for grants. We're also very interested in sustainability, ways of taking that grant, making it work once, and then turning it into a way of financing expansion or rollout of projects or second phases without having to come back for more grant money. I think those are some very important points. And I think in the interest of time, I'm not going to invite my panelists to provide any further feedback, but I'd just like to thank them very much indeed for their inputs, and to thank you, the audience, for taking your time to listen to the presentations. And I'm going to hand back to the Secretariat. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Gareth, and everyone. And I think that deserves a round of applause also for our project, our panel, and our moderator. Colleagues, we are coming to the end. We have a very, very short break, 10 minutes for a quick coffee and to step outside. Then we reconvene here at 4:45 and we bring it over the finish line. See you in a bit. That's very good. Thank you. I'm wondering if this is a problem with...
Thanks very much. Yeah, that was great. Yeah.
I have a question in general, because I think the biggest problem is trying to find that in the entire ecosystem, trying to think of everyone is not saying real things. In all these projects, there was no plan. All of you have said, no, they look for that. But then you have money
it's the lack of an exit strategy. And, the carbon markets have let us down because they're not providing the revenues through Article 6.64. It's become incredibly complicated. And actually, my particular area, Article 6.8, which is a non-market approach, and we've developed the adaptation benefits mechanism to provide a cash flow to these projects, but there's no demand because governments are not requiring emitters to pay for adaptation, they're focused on mitigation. So, there's some fundamental problems that we still need to address, but, identifying the cash flows to make these projects more sustainable, to reduce the reliance on grant, there's plenty of money to lend, plenty of concessional money available if there's a cash flow coming back, and there's instruments to take the risk, there's guarantees that you can arrange, and so to take that risk out of the process. But we don't have the carbon markets haven't really delivered, and the other sort of non-carbon benefits are not yet being monetized.
Those elements can be captured in a better project preparation process. Assume where it's concession right now. Yes, so you use much more concession.
Yes. Yes. Well, you have to have the Ministry of Finance involved. If you want to mobilise the concessional loans as well, you have to have the Ministry of Finance involved. And that is one of the frustrations that's often the Ministry of Environment is here. But on the other hand, you need aligned ministries to bring the expertise, but to create the enabling environment. I mean, in Armenia, if there were a policy that stopped burning fuel field residues, they've done it in plenty of countries. No reason why they couldn't do it in Armenia. Huge black carbon benefits. If they would do that, but you need the ministry to create that.
And you have a regulatory guarantee as well.
Yeah.
The basics that says that you can segregation exists in the absence of.
So well, let's see what happens.
Yeah.
Okay. And thanks for that's a pleasure. No, it's fine. It's normal. Give me a microphone. I'm always happy to speak. But yeah. Okay, good. Let's move. That was interesting. Yes. Yeah. That looks all yes. Yes. Why would anybody give you money? Is I guess you really need to make a strong case.
It's like in the Alps, and everyone is following. Let's say that.
So how many are in person?
I think the Swedish are not, but Ethiopia is here, Japan is here. So 2 in person.
Could we start with Sweden and someone?
Yeah. So I mean, we'll start with Sweden. They're online, right?
We start with Sweden?
Yeah.
Not Ethiopia?
Yeah.
Ethiopia.
Okay.
Ethiopia? Ethiopia, then we can go to Sweden. Yeah. And then we can go to Japan.
Okay, Sweden is online, right?
Yeah, partially online with Japan. Japan was here.
Japan is here. He came back for this. This one is.
Thank you. Okay, welcome back. I hope your time on the Pitch Hub was productive. At least the room I was in, those were very interesting projects and interesting discussion with the experts. Thank you for all who participated in preparing that. So let us now proceed to the final session of this investment-focused event, which is the regional case studies. During this session, we're going to showcase mitigation actions in the waste sector being implemented through collaborative efforts between financial and other institutions and countries. Now, the case studies will offer us diverse regional perspectives. They will illustrate innovative investment approaches, enabling policy frameworks and key lessons learned in advancing mitigation action in the waste sector, including through circular economy approaches. Now, we expect that each presenter will take approximately 10 minutes, starting with the presentation, followed by about 5 minutes for questions from the floor for Q&A with the participants. So I would like to start off by inviting our first case study presenter, Her Excellency Engineer Lelise Neme, who's the Director General of the Ethiopian Environmental Protection Agency. Please join us up here. You can. Thank you. Thank you. You have the floor.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Addis Ababa, the beautiful city, and most importantly, welcome to the past. And yes, I have a good news for all of you. The moment you land in Ethiopia, you become younger, as while the rest of the world is dealing with the challenge of 2025, we are still enjoying 2017. And after 4 days, we're going to join 2018, which makes it more wish to have a few years back. And congratulations for all of you traveled through time. But jokes aside, it's what sustainability is all about: rewinding the damage, reclaiming the lost time, and giving our planet a second chance, which is exactly we are here today to explore how waste can be transformed into energy and how yesterday's problem can become tomorrow's solution. So I will focus on my presentation that powering a circular future, Ethiopia's waste to energy vision and the REP-E model of Ethiopia. Next slide, please. So my presentation will focus on introduction and how Ethiopia is, what's the status that we have on circular economy strategy and roadmap. And the third one, the legal framework, what to manage the waste that we have in the country, and the case study of the REP-E. And finally, the Green Legacy Initiative and the Clean Ethiopia campaign. So as an introduction, Ethiopia is forerunner on tackling the climate challenge that we have. Third slide, please. And majorly working on CRG, the Climate Resilient Green Economy Strategy and Sustainability to drive the policy. As you see, the city has a rapid urbanization, and mostly the population growth is growing a lot. This is a challenge to have more wastes in the city, in the rural area also. As part of the vision, an initiative like Clean Ethiopia campaign aimed to mobilize citizens, improve urban sanitation, and foster environmental responsibility. So the REP-E model waste to energy project stands as a flagship example, turning municipal waste to clean electricity and demonstrating the potential of integrated sustainable of urban development. Next slide. Majorly as circular economy strategy and the roadmap of Ethiopia, Ethiopia has launched the circular economy roadmap to support the green growth goals, which promotes the reduce of efficiency, waste reduction, and sustainable production. Majorly, the projects like REP Waste to Energy shows the roadmap in action. Next slide. As a legal framework on waste management, our policy promotes sustainable resources, use an integrated waste system, especially the recent solid waste management proclamation, which established integrated waste management system, the legal reforms that we enabling to have more public-private partnership for circular infrastructure on the waste management and related to that. Specific to the laws, especially regulating pollution, hazardous waste, and plastics, e-waste has been one of the areas that we focus as a country, and all rules and regulations, especially the legal frameworks, are aligned with Ethiopia's circular economy goal. Next slide. As the case of REP-E model, which is the Africa's first large-scale waste-to-energy plant processing of wastes more than 1,400 tons daily, which converts municipal solid waste into clean electricity, reducing landfills use and emissions. These projects demonstrate economic benefit for job creation, energy generation, and waste management innovation, which serves a replicable model for rapidly urbanizing countries facing waste challenges. This highlights the value of integrating circular economy principles with clean energy solutions, which encourages more investment and policy support for sustainable waste management of worldwide. Still, Ethiopia has, this is the smallest project that we have. We need to have more waste to energy REP-E model projects in different areas, in different cities, so that we can able to manage our waste, which is one of the challenges that we are tackling in our country. Next slide. As this initiative, especially tackling the waste to energy to opportunity and making sure that we have a circular economy initiative in all activities, the Green Legacy Initiative and the Clean Ethiopia campaign is the major initiative that supports the waste management that we are doing, especially on encouraging more private sectors to involve and join this movement. As this Green Legacy Initiative and Clean Ethiopia Initiative is launched by His Excellency, our Prime Minister, Dr. Abiy Ahmed, this initiative help us to plant more than 46 billion indigenous seedlings, aiming to restore degraded lands, enhancing ecosystem affected by the waste. And it's also support the soil health and reduce pollution from unmanaged waste areas. The Clean Ethiopia Initiative, which is the 2 years activity, which really focus on creating an awareness creation to manage the wastes and to make sure that this waste goes to the right place and used for the energy, for example, for the REP-E activity. So this engaged community in improving waste collection and urban cleanness, raises awareness on proper waste disposal and recycling. Both initiatives strengthen Ethiopia's waste management system by promoting environmental restoration and community action, advancing the circular economy. The country is investing a lot. It's not only by the public or by government, it's also encouraging more private sectors to involve and do their investment through this possible option that the government provide in a policy. So REP-E is one of the biggest initiatives in Ethiopia, but we believe the Green Legacy will have more impact in our country. I would like to show you one example for the next slide. You can see on 2019, the coverage of forest of Ethiopia was 17.2%. After the biggest initiative that we are doing until now, in the last 7 years, we planted more than 46 billion seedlings in the country. So our coverage grows to from 17 to 23.6%, and we are aiming to reach 30% of forest coverage. This will allow us to manage our waste, to make sure that we have a clean environment, and making sure that especially on this environmental activities, especially on the waste management, encouraging more private sector to involve and to be part of it. And the society in each day-to-day activity, they need to be this movement of, action-oriented movement to support the movement that we already started. So we have seen a good result on REP, especially managing the landfill that we have in Addis Ababa city. But this project needs to expand in all cities, especially in major cities, as Ethiopia has more than 120 million population. The wastes, you can consider how many wastes that we have, because urbanization has been growing a lot every year. So this needs to be encouraged and, more majorly expand such kinds of investment is important in the country. So this is the shortest version of our presentation. We will share you the old document to share our experience. Due to the time limit, I'm going to stop here, and to collect any questions or anything that needs more clarification, I'm here to respond. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, and thank you for giving us that overview of and the progress that has been made to date. I'd like to now invite Mr. Jiro Hiratsuka, who's the Director for the Office of Climate Change Negotiation and Cooperation in the Ministry of Environment in Japan. Mr. Jiro, you have the floor. Please. Okay, due to the slight delay that we've had, we're going to make a slight switch in the order. And I'd like to invite our online presenter, Mr. Per Larssons, who's the Chief Sustainability Officer of Ragn-Sells in the Ragn-Sells Group in Sweden. Per, you have the floor.
Thank you so much. It is a pleasure to be able to address Addis Ababa directly from Europe. Besides the work at Ragn-Sells, I'm also co-chair on the International Chamber of Commerce Global Working Group on Circular Economy, and also member of the steering committee for UNEP's Global Partnership on Nutrient Management, and that will be key components in my presentations as well. Before I start, I would like to address that I also took part as a delegate in the UN Ocean Conference. And a very important message from that UN Ocean Conference was that we need to make sure that we doesn't pollute our coastal areas around the world. And here we see the challenge that we are emitting too much nitrogen, too much phosphorus, PFAS and microplastics into our ocean. I was very happy with COP28 outcome when it comes to the global stocktake, when this was specially addressed. We need to make sure that we preserve and restore the coastal areas around the planet. Now we have the slides in front of me, and I will now start my presentation a little bit first, a background of the company. We are a waste management company, and to be honest, we were a transport company in the 1881. Now we are still family owned in the third generation. In 2015, we saw the consequence of the future consequence of a future circular economy. And today we are a recycler in today's linear economy. When we looked into the future in 2015 through the work by our head of strategy, the Shield, we saw that the consequence going forward is that we will not exist as a company if we don't change our business model. So when we said that in a circular economy, we need to make sure that the resources that we can produce, can replace virgin production somewhere else. Secondly, we need to decontaminate, remove contaminants. And thirdly, every solution should we make sure that we doesn't create problems for future generations. So this has been the steering wheel for us since 2016 when it was launched. Yes, we do have also a CO2 emitting reduction program. We are a member of the Exponential Roadmap Initiative, where we are committed to become net zero by 2040, but that's just a fraction of our total potential. The total potential comes in the circular solutions that we are able to implement. And here we have the 4 different pillars that we are committed to work with when we are member of the Exponential Roadmap Initiative. And I will now focus on pillar 3, different scalable circular solutions. Let us see what the circular economy means. And before we switch the slide, I will just mention that when we also did the deep dive, we understood that there are some barriers. And one of the barriers that we have identified is current linear structure. One example is the waste hierarchy that has been mentioned several times. Yes, it removes waste, but it also prevents the real circular economy to emerge. We also see a problem with the Basel Convention because it prevents the potential to then do large-scale processes up and running. And when it comes to the waste hierarchy, there are 4 things that are a problem. First, it doesn't have a quality dimension. It focuses only on the input in processes, where all resources are discarded as waste. In a circular economy, it's the output of processes that are of interest. Thirdly, we need to make sure that we also can treat different material flows depending on the content, and the contamination will be a key component. So you need to look on each and every material flow, what are the best solution, and there's not a hierarchy. And sometimes even storage will be important going forward. Silica is one example. We know that we are running out of silica globally, so it would be really good to store that silica, not landfill it, but store it in the future circular economy so we can use it when it's needed. Next slide. What we have been working for a very long time is to identify different societal processes that today are linear, that really can become and be easily converted into supporting a more circular society. And one is our current wastewater treatment plants, where we see a huge potential that they can be the resource recovery plants of tomorrow. Meaning that they will produce fresh water for agriculture and industrial use, also produce huge amount of nutrients, both phosphorus and nitrogen, also increase a lot of the energy production, and at the same time prevent that we are destroying our ecosystem. I will demonstrate a little bit more going forward these different processes. But I can mention just that one big problem that will be critical to solve is the PFAS issue. And if we don't remove the PFAS before it enters into the wastewater treatment plants, it will be very hard to use water going forward. And we know we need much more water going forward. When it comes to the issues of phosphorus, I also would like to mention that we see that, especially that was highlighted also by Will Brownlee in the report Our Phosphorus Future. The amount of phosphorus that we're emitting into our rivers and our systems and now causing eutrophication will dramatically increase the amount of methane that are being emitted into the atmosphere. And this has not been calculated for. We see the same problem when it comes to nitrogen removal. It's now being emitted up in the atmosphere through nitrous oxide emissions, but I will come back to that. Let us now look into some circular processes. The first one, take next slide. So what we have done is that we have deep dive into different material flows and understand what our contribution be. Wednesday this week, we inaugurated our first circular solution for solvents, and it's almost 90% CO2 savings from the product. It means that we take different kind of solvents, in this case methanol, ethanol, and so forth, and clean it. But we can clean it in a high industrial way. It will not cost the waste the one that are sending in the solvents anything more than they do today. So the financing of this is that we can instead sell the products. We can resell the products as, in this case, new solvents going forward. The total saving of this process is almost 90% compared to if they would have bought the solvents from a virgin source. And this is now up to become our first what's called climate solutions by exponential roadmap initiative, meaning that we replace current linear structures with new structures. So more or less, the financing of this solution is by making sure that we can resell the product as new and replace virgin resources. Next slide. The second alternative is that we are developing a solution that we are using carbon dioxide as an input, and we combine it with calcium oxide from the ash mountains of Estonia. I can talk a long time about this project, but in a nutshell, we can say that with the first factory, we have the potential to reduce the CO2 emissions in other value chains with more than 1 million tons per year. But also with 3 factories up and running, we can enable Europe to sustain themselves with magnesium going forward. And magnesium are heavily dependent for Europe to import outside of Europe. So again, this is a process that are really positive for society, but the challenge still, we are investing our own money, but the legislation doesn't allow us to use CO2 that has been encatched. So this will be a very important step going forward to discuss how can we make sure that legislations allow us. If we just have legislation in place, the financing of this process and scaling of that will not be a problem. Next slide. Now we move into the food value chain, and we start focusing on one of the most important processes, and that's our nitrogen or ammonia process, where we catch the reactive nitrogen in the react water phase. This is how we have planted on one of our landfills. We also tested it on a wastewater treatment plant. And the good thing is that the more nitrogen, the more ammonia you have in the wastewater, the more we catch. But it doesn't just catch it. We also produce a nitrogen fertilizer and enables the wastewater treatment plant to maximize the biogas production. The outcome is, in this case, a clean ammonium salt. And only the selling of the ammonium salt will enable to make sure that the cost for the process, the OPEX in this case, will be covered. When it comes to the phosphorus innovation, we do see huge potential. We are now building our 2 phosphorus plants, one in Germany and one in Sweden. And this is something that we see that each and every big city around the world we need to have going forward. Both of those innovations focusing on where the 70% of the world's population will live in 2050, when we are 10 billion people on the planet. In this case, we will make sure that the cities can sustain themselves with the nutrients they need, for example, for egg production. So here suddenly also what will happen is that the wastewater treatment plants can really start to generate income and not as today only doing bad things less bad. Next slide. And here we come now to the final project, and that is what we are now. We are already collecting fish sludge, fish poo from fish farms in Norway. But together with 6 countries, we are setting up a role model, not only to collect it and to transport it to biogas production. We're taking a full circular model, in this case, where we will also set and produce both the nitrogen and phosphorus fertilizer as an outcome. And in 2029, we expect to demonstrate how this can be implemented across the world. There's 2 potential good things with this one. First, that we can make sure that it doesn't cause eutrophication. The second is that we can produce much more in our aquaculture going forward because we don't pollute. We doesn't remove the oxygen from the bottom of our coastal areas. The end product is so pure. It's much purer than what today have to sell as a feed ingredient when you are having poultry production or in this case pig production. So what we see is that we have a potential that makes sure that each and every country can sustain themselves with the feed phosphate that they need. In this case, we have now very tight collaboration with Canada. So from the first two factories, we aim to sell the phosphorus as a feed ingredient for egg production in Canada. And our partner in Canada is the Friesen Group of companies. The total potential here is, of course, as you understand, when the high income from the phosphorus are being calculated, we see that the cost for the wastewater treatment plant to implement this technology will reduce their cost what they do today in treat the sewage sludge. And to be honest, by investing in it, they will even start to generate income. And by doing that, they will also make sure that they collect as much phosphorus as possible. So this will be one of the easiest ways to make sure that we doesn't emit a lot of phosphorus in our river system and doesn't cause eutrophication going forward, and even generate an income for society. Next and last slide. I focused on 5 circular solutions. All those 5 circular solutions has a huge CO2 impact. When it comes to the nitrogen solutions, we talk about many billion tons of CO2 equivalents at the same time as you can generate a lot of income. The phosphorus the same. The use of CO2 the same to produce new raw materials. But we also make sure that we can reduce the risk that we overshoot the planetary boundaries. As a guiding tool for our work of creating those circular solutions from the start of 2015 and forward, we have used the science behind the planetary boundaries to develop solutions that really tackle the biggest problems. And I will be present at COP30 together with the team from also IKEA, Alfa Laval, Tetra Pak and Spaudi. I would love to invite you to one of our sessions on the 15th. And we have also a roundtable discussion where I can also like to have more discussions with you how this can be implemented. All the 5 circular solutions presented are scaled globally. 3 of them are directly connected to the food system and will support many other things than only the climate dimension. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Per, for that comprehensive presentation. And as you mentioned, the slides will be available for everybody following on the website. We'll now move to the next presentation by Mr. Jiro Hiratsuka from the Ministry of Environment in Japan. And thank you for your patience in accommodating the shift in the order. And while he's preparing to make his presentation, I would also like to invite Ms. Andrea De Nigris Melgar, who's from the National Directorate of Climate Change and Ministry of Environment in Uruguay, to join us at the podium as we will be listening to your case study after. Over to you, Japan.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good evening, everyone. Her Excellency Engineer Neme and distinguished delegates, colleagues, it's my great honor to make a presentation here. I'm going to make a presentation of the case studies, but it's not in Japan, but it's a project that we've done in other countries. Using the JCM. JCM is a JCM project, and the JCM is a joint crediting mechanism, and this is a market tool, and the Japanese company conducting mitigation activities in the partner countries. On your left bottom, this amount can be reduced after reduce the GHG emission after JCM project. So both countries calculate the amount of the reduction in a conservative manner, and then get the credit. So part of credit will be transferred to the Japan to count toward the achievement of the NDC in Japan, and the rest of the credit will be used in that country, partner country, I mean. But the thing is that the transferred credit to Japan will not be used in the partner country by the corresponding the arrangement in order to avoid the double counting, in line with the Article 6 of the Paris Agreement. So here is a map of the 31 partner countries. The latest one is India. We signed last month. And there are 5 African countries here. This is a very small world map. And this is a project, I mean the JCM financing project. The Ministry of the Environment make a grant or subsidy for the project conducted by a Japanese company in the JCM partner countries. And out of the more than 280 projects, I'm going to explain 2 projects. One is a waste energy facility in Bac Ninh in Vietnam. So it's a start operation from last year with a capacity of 500 tons, of which 300 tons per day is from the municipal solid waste they generated from the 470,000 inhabitants in Bac Ninh. It's a part of Bac Ninh city, actually. And it generates 11.6 megawatt of the electricity, and then reduces 40,000 ton equivalent of CO2 every year. So this is a brief picture of how we can calculate the emission reduction efforts. So we can compare both the project and the reference case scenario. I will not explain in detail. If you have any interest, please have the question later. And here is the project scheme on the WTE project in Vietnam. And think that on your right top, the JFE Engineering is a Japanese company who is responsible for the EPC of this project. And the other side is the Tuan Tian Environment. This is a Vietnam company, local environmental service companies. These 2 companies established a special purpose vehicle called the T&J, the green energy, and then operate the power generation, waste to energy power plant. For the waste flow, you can see from Bac Ninh province, the 350 tons of the MSW, and the 150 tons of the industrial solid waste. This is non-hazardous industrial waste, collected and transported by the Tuan Tian. And then we have the waste to energy. Then we have the ash, can be the landfill by the Tuan Tian. And we generate 11.6 megawatt of the electricity, and part of them, some of them will be used internally, and rest of them, the 9.4 megawatt will be sold to the public energy company in Vietnam, EVN. About the finance, we have the JCM grants from MOEJ, means of the Environment Japan have the subsidy to this project. And also that we have the finance instrument from IFC, both a loan from its own account, and also that the blended finance loan by the Finnish Climate Fund. The rest of the finance will be covered by the special purpose vehicle through equity of 2 companies. So from the operation and maintenance side, we have in Japan, we have the T&A Engineering Environment. This is also the Japanese company under the group of the JFE. So they have the track record in operating the WT energy plant in Japan. So they have the technical assistance for the OMM in Vietnam. So here is some of the risks. And for instance, we have the construction risk and the risk of the delay or risk of the increased amount of the cost. And but we have the Japanese JFE Engineering, the EPC is responsible for it. And we have the legal contract risk, and saying that we need to collect enough amount of the waste, and also that after generating the power, it should be sold to the public company. And that's why that contract is very important. And the amount, the quality and the quantity of waste is also important, because we need to collect the larger amount of the waste, close to the 500 ton, in order to get the maximum, the capacity of the power generation. And tipping fee is paid by the province and also the private company, especially for the industrial waste. From the private company, we have the risk of the tipping fee. And from finance side, the off-taker we are not sure the uncertain credit for the local government and also that the suppliers, waste suppliers. Finally, finance risk, we have in Vietnam, we have a limited project of WTE. So that's why there's a limited, so that's why the financial institution have a difficulty to arrange loan. So at the bottom, we have the key actions to address these risks. First of all, this is not risk, but at the very beginning, we need both company, Japan and Vietnam. That's why the Ministry of the Environment organized the Environment Week in Vietnam in 2019. At that meeting, Japanese and Vietnamese companies have the business matching, and that will result in this project. We also have the finance program, the grant by the JCM, And we have the blended finance from IFC and the climate fund of the Finland. Finally, the master plan, we have two master plans. I mean the power development master plan and also the waste treatment master plan. The waste to energy should be included in the power master plan because we need to sell as a feed-in tariff. And also that we need to make it sure to collect enough amount of waste. That's why including this project into the waste treatment master plan is also crucial. Both of them are prepared by the Vietnam government, central government. So next slide, next project is the Fukuoka method. And on your left side, you can see the ordinal, the kind of open dumping waste landfill site, which have no oxygen supply. That's a serious problem, like the methane emission in an anaerobic condition. And also we have the hydrogen sulfide here, and that could be health risk, but the air pollution, and the methane also have the risk of fire. And the water, we have the reshed, but it's not collected. It's maybe that have a risk of the penetrating in the groundwater, have the risk of the contamination. Then we introduced the Fukuoka method. They basically that it introduced ventilation pipes, and in order to avoid the leaking of the water, we have the waterproof sheet underground at the bottom of the landfill site. Then it automatically, the oxygen, I mean air, are supplied through the ventilation pipes, that vertical pipe here. And then that will reduce the amount of the methane emission. Of course, the odor will decrease, and we have no fire, etc. That could be a very good solving not only the environmental issue, climate issue, but also the social problem, I mean, that contribute to sustainable development. So this one, we have the longer history, more than 20 countries we introduced this Fukuoka method worldwide, but recently we start a project of the JCM, which is a major in Tunisia. We have the UNITO JCM grant project supported by the Ministry of the Environment. This is also a JCM project. This is a picture of the example in it's an old one. It's one of the oldest one outside Japan in Malaysia. In 1988, we have the Fukuoka method introduced. After that, there's no smoke here, or maybe the fire here. And the thing that at the bottom of the picture, you can see this is an implementation, this is under construction. At the bottom of the landfill site, we have the vertical, the water collection pipe. Actually, that branches are used from the bamboo, which can be collected easily. And also that the vertical yellow one, this is a ventilation. So this is the used drum. So it's we can prepare without any special technology at the cheapest cost. So that will be we want to introduce in the many developing countries. So this is the conclusion. Actually, at the bottom of the picture, you can see that this is the Koshe landfill site, or maybe we call Pepi. It's in Addis Abeba. This is not JCM project, but the Japanese government together with UN Habitat help assistance after the tragedy in 2019, introducing Fukuoka method. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hiratsuka. I would now like to invite Ms. Andrea de Nigris-Melgar, who's the manager at the National Directorate of Climate Change at the Ministry of Environment in Uruguay. You have the floor.
Well, first of all, I want to thank for the opportunity to present the Uruguayan experience. It was just a joke because I was not expected to talk. So I ask you for a little patience. Okay, my presentation is not so technological, but I think that makes us sense of the process to talk within the national politicians to the subnational politicians and others partners. Uruguay formally established a climate change response system by law in 2009, coordinated by Ministry of Environment, and it is comprised to 11 ministries. The Office of Planning Budget, the Congress of Mayors is sitting in this table, the National Emergency System, and the Uruguayan Agency of International Cooperation. In 2017, the system established the climate change policy, planning to 2050, and in the initial NDC in 2020, its proposal, capturing and burning methane at the final disposal sites, covering 60% of urban solid waste till by 2025. One of the greatest barriers of this statement can show in the following graph. This is the difference between the national and the subnational inventory. The left slide illustrates the distribution of dioxide equivalent emissions for the capital city, while the right side shows the national inventory. You can see that for national inventory, the waste contributes 5%, and for the city is about 21%. That means that measures of the city are the most concerned to restrain the emissions in land. In Uruguay, the local government is responsible to manage waste, and the cleanliness of the city is also the often cause of public concern. So, it's the first cause for the measures. They start considering another options, alternatives to reduce waste and improvement to disposal sites as goals before the NDC. For example, in 2005, the Department of Maldonado, with partial funding of the GEF project, began a pilot program to capture and generate biogas at the La Rosa landfill. As now, 2023, the facility remains operational with 4% of the urban solid waste from Maldonado sent to the final disposal site, including methane captures and electricity generation. By 6 years later, with the participation of the Clean Development Mechanism, Montevideo City Council established a landfill gas capture and combustion facility at the final disposal site. In 2023, 56% of urban solid waste generated in Montevideo was disposal with methane capture and combustion system. Enhancing national waste management, especially regarding methane emission, is necessary since current initiatives fall short to NCD 1. The current NCD 2 was developed in line with the National Waste Management Plan enacted in 2021. And I think this was a very strategic thing because the measures are committed to follow the National Waste Management Plan. And in this management waste plan, we create a national strategy to prevent and reduce food loss and waste, aims to lower recyclable waste sent to disposal, and includes organic waste recovery strategies in department management. Then the local governments start actively addressing waste emission mitigation. For example, Montevideo expanded its landfill. The upgrade facility founded by the departmental government and IBD loan. Maldonado signed an agreement with the Ministry of Environment, you can see there. The expansion was enabled by financial contribution from both national and department governments. Canelones, another location, climate plan sets methane capture targets and goals for circular economy source separation and resource recovery. And Rivera, another place, created a waste management plan for the city center named More Circular Center, and it's founded by the national and the departmental government. So now we found our own project. The national waste management is now underway focuses on circular economy principles. But the first case, the most important case, are closing open our dam site, installing transfer station and enhancing logistics, upgrading equipment and infrastructure at disposal sites, and adding management elements to improve waste management. The Ministry of Environmental is creating departmental plans with guidelines on climate change. By now, by now, the National Development Agency and the Congress of Mayors, with European Union co-financing, has created another instrument. Is the Territorial Development Fund to provide financial support for productive development and circular economy projects focused on micro, small, and medium enterprise for waste recovery and circular economy through local government. We can say that with financial support, Uruguay have had some major success, some moderate ones, but they have always allowed us to make progress we would not have been able to do otherwise. And that's important. 3 points that emerge of this presentation. To achieve a successful response, we need to secure commitment at multiple levels, and we struggle to communicate the urgency of the situation. Our countries have emergencies that are more pressing than the command of a lot of attention of public policy. The problems are global, but the solutions are specific, even within countries. Each community is different and solves things different. We can draw inspiration from the solution of others, but extrapolation is not always viable. Our countries can't do it alone. We need financial help. Sometimes it's a little, sometimes not so little, sometimes in form of loan. But we must be able to access to a range of instruments to make operation more effective, agile, and efficient. So, thank you for your attention. I'm sorry for my awful English, but it's what we can.
Thank you very much for that presentation. Really appreciate it. So those are the 4 regional case studies that we had, and I would now like to open the floor to see if there are any questions or reactions or comments, what resonates with you, as we have an opportunity now to engage with our speakers. So the floor is now open. I can see my co-chair has a question. Gao, you proceed.
Thank you, Angela. I would like to leave this opportunity to our participants, but as you know, I'm also a researcher. I'm very interested in these country case studies, especially when I heard that both Ethiopia and Japan has mentioned the Waste to Energy project. So my question will focus on these ones. So I think, and this is an investment-focused event. So I would like to ask our distinguished delegates from Ethiopia, what are the funding resources of your Waste to Energy projects? And also, if that is possible for like the GCM to support the Waste to Energy project in Ethiopia, what kind of criteria should their project meet? This is one question. The second one is that I learned something from Erwan this afternoon. I think he said it is very important to turn waste into resources and then to commodity. I think that is very important, and especially with regard to the waste management, especially the waste to energy project. I think first, of course, we have waste, and then we regard them as resources, and then we should turn into commodity, which is in fact a fuel. But the question is that for the general waste, we know that especially if we mixed the waste, especially the food waste, the water content in the food waste will reduce the quality of the West, general West to be as a fuel. So I'm not sure if there are any legal or policy framework or infrastructure arrangements or like the community educational campaign in Ethiopia, and also I know there are a lot of things in Japan, but to sort the different type of the West. Are there any kind of this framework or infrastructure arrangement in Ethiopia to improve the quality of the West, which can be regarded as a fuel to fuel into the power plants? Thank you for so many questions.
Okay, I'll take the question from Uganda, and then we have the speakers respond. Uganda, please.
Thank you very much, Co-Chair, and thank you very much for the countries and the private institutions that have shared. I think we have not seen the challenges that those different countries might have experienced in their waste management, because I see the experience from Uganda is that I think there are people who are willing to go into the circular economy practices, but I think when they get to the collection of the waste, either they don't get access to the waste. So I think it would be very good for us to know what have been some of the challenges, most especially from the country-driven approaches, and then what have been your mitigation measures to actually ensure you get out of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Uganda. So maybe we'll start with Ethiopia. We have a series of questions, one on the financing, one on legal frameworks around the standards for waste for the energy plants, and now a question also on the challenges.
Thank you very much for very good questions, and I want to appreciate for those who present their country's experience. That will be a lot of input for us. So let me reflect on some of the questions that has been raised for Ethiopia, especially with regard to the funding. Of course, the waste to energy REP project is a critical project that we launched during 10 or 12 years back. While we started this project, it was the first in Africa. So with this process, the World Bank Group has supported us. The Africa Development Bank has supported us, including technically there was a support that we received from JICA. But it's not only their funding, but the city administration has also invested in this waste to energy facility. So as the country of a population of 120 million, this one project is not enough. And I was very happy while I heard from Japan, my brother was raising about JCM. That will be the area that we are going to knock after this meeting, because we need more waste to energy projects in Ethiopia, and we need more investment that really needs the private sector to involve, and development partners like JCM has invested a lot in different countries, and we expect the same investment will be here invested in Ethiopia, and we collaborate with the team. Of course, the waste quality is a critical technical challenge that we are facing, as my dear sister was raising also. So as a country, we try to review our regulations, especially proclamations on waste management. So we have a new crafted solid waste management proclamation, which is revised after 21 years. And this has an updated version to collaborate the interest of our facility, including to meet the standard that we already set in CRD, or climate resilience strategy, economic strategy. So towards this proclamation will allow us people to start from their in-house, changing or managing their wastes, and to minimize, to reuse some of the things, and then while the waste goes to the landfill, it need to have such criteria, and we are trying to fit that one. Still, it's not perfect, but we are trying to push it. As I highlighted on my last version of my presentation, we highlighted Clean Ethiopia campaign, which this campaign stays for 6 months in each year, and each month has its own area of focus. Especially on September, our focus is waste management, which include the solid waste, the plastic waste, the e-waste, hazardous waste. So people should understand which waste to manage and how they need to majorly, disaggregate the waste so that we can fit to the facility that we already invested. So this is how we are trying to educate our people and to campaign it so that people can understand what is the interest of our facility in Addis Ababa. As I mentioned, this is the first facility that we have, but in regions, the same modality we are following up. So this campaign is not only in Addis Ababa, but in all regions in the 2 administrations that we are doing. Still, the system that we are building in awareness creation is not that much successful, but we're trying our best. But still, we need to have collaborative support of the private sectors. And the one thing that we introduced on our solid waste management proclamation, the EPR, extended producer responsibility, so that the industrialists need to take a stake of creating awareness, sharing their awareness while people using their product. So that's the other modality we are following. Let me get back to my sister question, especially on the challenge. Of course, there are a few challenges. One is that addressing some technical faults of the system, getting easily the spare parts, managing the quality of the waste supply, especially from the healthcare facilities. Also, these are the major challenge, but still, these projects are producing an energy that goes to the national grid and is contributing to Clean Ethiopia's implementation in the country. So that's the thing that I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think Per Larsens wanted to also intervene on the questions. Per, can you come on?
Yes. Yes. Yeah, thank you so much. And just when it comes to the waste to energy, on my backdrop here, you see a building. That's the first ash to salt plant in the world. It means that it takes the fly ashes from a waste to energy plants and separates the salts to high quality end products. So it means that the potassium chloride, the calcium chloride, and sodium chloride will be sold back to industry. So in this case, the waste to energy is not the end. It is the beginning of new resources. When it comes to the bottom ashes, we know that they contains a lot of heavy metals, but also valuable metals. So they, of course, are sorted out. So waste to energy, I agree. We need to make sure that we doesn't, in this case, use food waste. It should be treated in a different way. But when we have resources that are contaminated, suddenly the waste to energy plants will have a very important role to separate these kind of elements and will also make sure that we can bring back the resources. This plant in my backdrop can support 50% of the total waste to energy plants in Sweden, and it's a €100 million investment, and its end will be very profitable. So again, this is a new way of thinking where really depends on the content of the material, what kind of treatment method you should have.
Thank you, Per, for those insights. I'll turn to our other 2 panelists to see if you have reflections on the questions. Shiro?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Firstly, I want to reply from the question of Mr. Koche. The process of the JCM, actually, this is a framework, it's a G2G framework. First of all, that the partner country in Japan is going to make a MOC, Memorandum of Cooperation. So we have 31 countries, we have MOC so far. After that, in that country, the Japanese private company are able to conduct a project. So this case, actually, that it's the private company can make a project by themselves with cooperating the companies in the private some partner countries. But if you want to apply for the Japanese JCM grant or subsidy, then it's subsidy to Japanese company. So we need to, Japan, Ministry of the Environment Japan is open to public within Japan for the apply to the JCM, the subsidy every year. So in that case, the partner countries and the private company in Japan is going to make the activities in order to apply for that project. And about the ash, especially for the fly ash, is also very important to handle with care because it contains the toxic or metals, as you mentioned. And that's why that, especially in the Bakunin waste to treatment, waste to energy project, we have the 60 employees there. And most of them actually from in the Bakunin people. And the Japanese, the JFE company have the technical support for the operation and the maintenance. And actually that they went to Japan to get the technical assistance with a training program. So the proper handling is very important.
So I will now turn to a colleague from Uruguay to maybe speak to the last question on challenges.
Well, we have a lot of waste to energy, but not with waste from landfill. We use a lot of wood waste. We see residues of biomass to make energy. You see, Uruguay has near 90% of electric energy renewable. So we have a lot of, a very few space to mitigate from energy. We need to improve our, I don't know, our imagination in waste. And I refer specifically to the waste from urban locations. In this case, it was a pilot plant, and we only use landfill gas. And in the now with Maldonado will make her plant for all the city. It's also landfill gas. We are not use waste like to emerge.
Okay, thank you very much. We are currently at time, but I see one more question, so we will take it. If you keep it brief, and then we'll see. I will ask one of the panelists to volunteer to respond to it. So that's the ENGO representative. Can you please switch on the mic for the speaker?
Hello? Thank you. I will be brief. I had a question and a comment about the Repi incinerator, the waste to energy project in Ethiopia. The Asian Development Bank has recommended against waste to energy in the global south, precisely because, following on the co-chair's comments, precisely because of the quality of the waste, the nature of the waste. Low calorific value, high water content, and so this causes a lot of operational problems. And we've seen some news reports about the incinerator here not being able to function at full capacity or generate energy. So I was wondering if you could give us an update on whether it's actually functioning at full capacity and how much energy it generates. I also wanted to make a comment, which is a caution not to consider that clean energy. We've done some analysis of waste to energy projects and find that they are more carbon intensive than the grid in most countries. They're pretty much on par with coal. And when we look at the methane savings by avoiding the methane coming from landfills, and we compare that to the long-term impact of the carbon dioxide, the effect is about the same over a few decades. So I'm not sure that that would really qualify as a low-carbon project. Thank you.
So thank you so much for the question. Again, as I highlighted earlier on my response, this project is not now 100% operational, which means we are operationally making, more with 60% of their capacity. Still, there are few technical challenges that we are facing, but still it's producing 25 megawatt of power is generating now. That will be some link to the national grid. But the ambition to have is more than 100 megawatt. But the challenge that I raise is about the waste quality, especially most of the waste is on high organic content, that's food or yard wastes that needs to be, majorly has a low heating value. So that's the challenge that we are facing, but parallelly we are trying to mitigate this challenge by getting some technical support from the experience that we already has with different countries. We are mobilizing those technical experts to this facility, especially to support the city administration and EEP. Those facilities are helping, supporting the technical experts that are operating at the site of the station, so that they can disaggregate of those wastes to manage it and making sure that we are using appropriate wastes to generate those energy. Still, we're demanding a lot of support of technical from different of our development partners, but still it has a big impact on the Clean Ethiopia's initiative that we are implementing, because it's minimizing the landfill of wastes in the country, especially it minimizes the pollution, especially the air pollution, the soil pollution that we are facing in the country. So the contribution that this facility has is a big, but the technical gap that needs to be filled is demanded. And parallelly, it's an opportunity, especially the waste to energy facility will lead us to generate more energy to supply for the national grid, including to minimize the pollution that we have as a country due to the waste challenge. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much to all our distinguished speakers for these very, very rich and insightful presentations, and for sharing your expertise and experiences. We've learned a lot, and we thank you for bringing the regional nuance to this investment-focused event. I also want to thank the participants who have raised questions. I think this has been very valuable. I will now pass on to my colleague to summarize and close the session.
Thank you, Angela. And now I would like to start the closing session. My co-chair and I would like to thank you all for your active participation and engagement over the last 2 days, both in person and virtually. And we would like to thank again the experts, moderators, and participants who have contributed to the presentation, panel discussion, and all your questions. And as well with our capable secretarial team and our host, Ethiopia, and her people. And as per mandate from the CMA decision, under our guidance, the secretarial will include information on the investment-focused event in the summary report of this dialogue and the event, and the annual report will be published in advance ahead of the COP30. My co-chair and I remain available to hear your feedback on programs and welcome any suggestions for improvement. I should say this is the first year Angela and I cooperate to serve you as a co-chair of the MWP. And we learned a lot from the engagement with you, and also under guidance. We hope that next year we can continue improve the arrangement and to serve you and serve the purpose of the CMA decision. Once again, thank you for your participation, and we wish you a safe travel back to your home and look forward to seeing you, many of you, in Belém. Thank you so much.
Thank you.